let's go with Abadon.
Okay.
What do you think could be improved with Abadon in AEW?
So this is interesting because I feel like there are some people on the roster that we see on TV pretty regularly, and then there's some people on the roster that we're really not seeing utilized very much, especially some people who seem to make quite an impact when they first debuted, but then kind of fell off the radar after a little bit. And I feel like Abadon's a good example of this. We really haven't seen much of her, and especially now with AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation not being part of the equation, I feel like she's somebody that we haven't seen much of. And I know when you just showed her render on the website, she kind of had a little bit of a different look in her render. She still had like the general sort of like ghoulish monster type of gimmick, but she had a little bit of a different look. And actually, when you showed me that picture, I was kind of like, oh, like I didn't realize she changed her look up a little bit, because I feel like we haven't, with at least her color scheme, we haven't seen much of her. And I think she's somebody that it's hard to even make a judgment call on in some ways, because I don't really feel like we've fully seen what she's capable of. I feel like when they first debuted her, they were kind of showing us the potential, like when she was crawling out to the ring, and she had like this really hardcore sort of like heavy metal music when she first debuted, and I think they changed it at some point, which I actually didn't. I wasn't a fan of the entrance music change. I thought her original music was really badass, but it seemed like her first few matches, like she kind of made an impact just like being this spooky character and sort of like using that to like pull a fast one on her opponents. And then she kind of fell off for a little bit. So it'd be nice to see, now that she's kind of switched up her look a little bit, and I've seen like some of her training photos on social media, it'd be nice to see them sort of like re-debut her with like an Abadon 2.0 sort of like revised gimmick, like almost like what they had to do with Karrion Kross in WWE, where like they debuted him on the main roster and they kind of fumbled it a little bit with how they should have debuted him, and then eventually he came back as the character that he was meant to be. I feel like they need to do something like that with her to sort of give her character an opportunity to really get over with a wider audience.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of potential. And like you were saying, when AEW Dark first debuted, she was on there. She scared a bunch of the local girls that were coming into
right.
Squash them and then go on. But it's like, okay, you've got this monster. She's gotten herself into fantastic shape from her Instagram. So it's like, I just don't know if they're ever going to be able to figure anything out to do with her before her contract expires, and then she just goes off somewhere else. I mean, she's in the video game, so obviously they had...
She's got to be important. She's in the video game.
Which can't be said for everybody that we're going to talk about here. If they're going to do something with her, I mean, the only thing I could see her is in some like faction with like the Butcher and the Blade or the House of Black or something like that, but they've already got girls with them, so it's kind of like she doesn't really fit in with those girls either.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting that you mentioned House of Black, because if there's anywhere, any existing faction where I could have seen her maybe fit, it probably would have been with that. You know what? I think that they're like the closest fit for her, but I almost feel like she's even like too spooky for them. They're kind of spooky in different ways a little bit. I think.
Because they're like kind of creepy spooky, but she's like horror movie spooky though.
Yeah, I almost feel like if there's anyone that she would have fit in with, like maybe it would have been them. But also I feel like she, like you said, she's kind of more of like a horror spooky. I almost feel like maybe it would have been distracting to what they're doing. I feel like if she were to have a faction, it would almost need to be something where like she is sort of the focal point, and then whoever is with her is in more of like a supporting role. Like if they had some local talents or like some people that they kind of wanted to bring onto ROH and like wanted to build up some experience before they sort of set them off on their own. Maybe they could put people with her kind of like in the background and then eventually, you know, have that grow and have those people kind of branch off and do their own thing. I feel like she as a like a horror character almost needs to be like a focal point of a group. But I just feel like we haven't seen a lot of her, and it's one of those things where like they debut someone and they have such a stacked roster that it's hard to like know what to do with everybody sometimes, because like you can't have everybody be a star at the same time. So I hope, for the sake of her and also for the sake of just like keeping the women's division fresh and interesting, I hope that they find something to do with her. But at this point, I don't know if it's just me. I feel like without Dark and without Elevation, it seems like they're not really giving her a role right now. And they could give her one if they wanted her to rise to the occasion and do something big and spooky. I think that they could.
Yeah, Sam Frank says she looks Rob Zombie spooky, which is the perfect comparison. She does belong in a Rob Zombie movie.